Tonight on The Wrap, turmoil at number 10. The Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, quits over his role appointing Peter Mandelson. But does it leave Sir Keir Starmer exposed?
Morgan McSweeney was the backbone of the Starmer project, and his departure will leave a huge void. But two cabinet ministers told me quite clearly that the Prime Minister simply had no options. Such was the scale of the crisis.
Also tonight, Japan's Iron Lady secures a stunning landslide victory as her snap election gamble pays off. The mystery surrounding the disappearance of the mother of a US TV host, as the family say they will pay for her safe return. And will sports or politics dominate the Super Bowl with more than 100 million people watching the action and Bad Bunny's halftime show? Well, we discuss the day's biggest stories with the political commentator Kirsty Buchanan and Aubrey Allegretti from The Times. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, focusing on the Prime Minister's top aide resigning over the Mandelson scandal. Well, good evening. I take full responsibility. The words of the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, as he resigned and became the scapegoat for the appointment of Peter Mandelson, despite his links to Jeffrey Epstein. So, Kirsty and Aubrey, welcome to both of you. Does Morgan McSweeney's departure end the bloodletting? Kirsty?
Not at all. I think, if anything, it hastens Starmer's eventual departure.
I mean, he's taken this move to effectively placate those in the left of the party. I think the few remaining Starmer allies will be left asking, what's the point in the project? OK, well, tomorrow, Sir Keir Starmer will address members of the Parliamentary Labour Party as he tries to regain control. Let's hear more then from our political editor, Beth Rigby.
Prime Minister.
Morgan McSweeney is an essential part of my team. He helped me change the Labour Party and win an election. Of course I have confidence in him.
Keir Starmer, but days ago at Prime Minister's questions, standing by his right-hand man. But now the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff has gone from lieutenant to lightning rod. Morgan McSweeney forced to quit number 10 over the Mandelson crisis as the Prime Minister offered up his closest aide in an attempt to save himself. In a statement, Sir Keir Starmer said it had been an honour to work with Morgan McSweeney for many years, as he thanked him for his commitment to the Labour Party and to our country. Our party and I owe him a debt of gratitude. Morgan McSweeney said the decision to appoint Peter Mandelson was wrong. I advised the Prime Minister to make that appointment, and I take full responsibility for that advice. The only honourable course is to step aside. It has been a swift and dramatic fall. For years, Morgan McSweeney was by Starmer's side, the strategist that got him elected Labour leader, the mastermind of the winning election campaign, and the backbone of Starmer's number 10. In a sign of the frantic decision-making, on Sunday morning, this Cabinet Minister was saying McSweeney shouldn't be the fall guy for Mandelson.
It's a prime ministerial appointment, and Prime Ministers have to take responsibility for the decisions that they make. Perhaps I say this as someone who was a former staffer, as they say, in number 10 myself. I don't know the advice that was given, but in the end, it's a prime ministerial appointment, and I think the stuff about Morgan McSweeney is sort of beside the point.
But many Labour figures disagreed, and his resignation was welcomed by some.
I think Morgan McSweeney has probably done the right thing by saying, look, I take responsibility for this. But I think the whole Labour Party, including the Prime Minister, including all of the Labour Party, is going to have to do a lot of soul searching and a lot of self-reflection on this culture that did lionise men like Peter Mandelson and did put him on a pedestal at all costs, even though everybody knew he was a flawed character and had got into trouble before.
I can tell you the team inside number 10 are reeling as the fallout of the Mandelson scandal rips through the very heart of the number 10 operation. Morgan McSweeney was the backbone of the Starmer project, and his departure will leave a huge void. But 2 cabinet ministers told me quite clearly that the Prime Minister simply had no options. Such was the scale of the crisis and the gravity of his situation. He had no choice. It was inevitable that McSweeney had to go. That it's got to this point, though, reflects how perilous the Prime Minister's position is. And this might buy him some time, but it's a sign of the crisis, not a solution to it. On Monday, the Prime Minister will appeal directly to his MPs as he tries to right what has gone so wrong in his number 10. But events of the weekend point to a government in freefall. Starmer staggers on, for now. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
Well, let's bring in our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates, who is in Downing Street for us tonight. So, Sam, Operation Save Starmer is underway, it appears. The fall guy has been identified. 1, can he survive? And 2, who is Starmer without McSweeney?
Great questions, Anna. Look, there has never been a period of Keir Starmer's premiership, leadership of the Labour Party, where Morgan McSweeney has been more than a few steps away from him. It's no exaggeration to say he wouldn't be leader of the Labour Party if Morgan McSweeney hadn't helped him. It's no exaggeration by common consent that he wouldn't have had a landslide majority in the summer of 2024 without Morgan McSweeney. We had been told that these 2 figures were indivisible, and as early as this morning we were told Morgan McSweeney wouldn't resign, but here we are. Now we will find out what Keir Starmer is without his right-hand man. Look, let's look at the optimistic case first of all. I've been talking to a cabinet minister who told me, look, too often we concede Keir Starmer subcontracted the politics to Morgan McSweeney. He will now have to do it on his own, and he will be able to show his team and the country that actually he knows what the British public wants and can deliver for it. But I have to say there is a lot of pessimism elsewhere in government, elsewhere amongst MPs. Such is the worry in the building behind me that there have even been calls from people in here to friends of Morgan McSweeney's urging that there is not a briefing war. Eyebrows were raised by Morgan McSweeney's statement, which suggested that he was not directly to blame for the appointment. He said he took responsibility, but he wasn't fully in charge of that vetting process. Why did he need to say that? Asked one minister. And I know that there were those conversations around Whitehall with people in here saying, let's not start attacking one another, because this could descend into something quite ugly. Because there's a truth, Anna, which is that there are people all around here, all around in Whitehall, who are more loyal to Morgan McSweeney than they were to the Prime Minister. They found him, the chief aide, more personable, more engaged, even knew their name when the Prime Minister did not. That is tricky. Look, let's look at tomorrow. That will be bookended by 2 massive events. The first will be the opening of the markets. I know that traders have been talking to one another and been in touch to find out the political significance, because they can see potentially we are close to the end of Keir Starmer and his time in number 10. What that means for borrowing, what that means for debt, what that means for the markets they are worrying about. So we'll watch that early on at 7 a.m. Then at the other end of the day, there is an address by Keir Starmer to the Parliamentary Labour Party, maybe even a speech. Remember, Labour MPs are the judge, jury and executioner of a Labour Prime Minister. Now, tonight, the common consensus in Whitehall, Westminster and the Labour Party is that maybe, just maybe, Keir Starmer has bought himself a little bit more time, maybe even post-May, to those elections. But he has got rid of his very final line of defence. Could that actually be the thing that proves fatal?
Sam, thank you very much indeed. Plenty more on your podcast, I know, in the morning. Very interesting. Thanks very much indeed. Let's bring our guests then. Aubrey, Kirsty, you know, this is very interesting. And the point is, I suppose, that Morgan McSweeney has left from a point of weakness for the Prime Minister and now isolation. So what difference will the departure of this very critical Chief of Staff make to him?
Well, I suppose the immediate attempt is to take the heat out of the situation and to provide some accountability, because clearly for weeks now there have been stories about the Epstein files and the continued relationship that Peter Mandelson had with Jeffrey Epstein. So removing Morgan McSweeney from the equation is designing to sort of take some of the heat out of this. Now, make no mistake, some people on the left of the Labour Party have been gunning for Morgan McSweeney for months. They blame him, for example, for the reshuffle in September last year that saw some sort of left-wing ministers demoted or moved back onto the backbenches, and they think that Keir Starmer was really sort of hardening his vice on the grip of the party, all controlled by Morgan McSweeney. This is an attempt to sort of buy Keir Starmer time, satiate those who have issues and problems with Morgan McSweeney. But I still think it begs the ultimate question of, now that you have Keir Starmer without the principal architect of his project, what is the point of him? And that's what the Prime Minister is going to have to articulate in the next few days if he wants to stand any chance of surviving with his MPs.
Yes, indeed. Was the bit that propped up Keir Starmer Morgan McSweeney, and is he a vassal state without? Is that the sort of question that's being asked now?
He not only propped up Keir Starmer, he made Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer would not have been leader of the Labour Party were it not for Morgan McSweeney. He probably wouldn't have won the election were it not for Morgan McSweeney. Without him, he is effectively a hollow vessel. One of the things that Morgan McSweeney did fail to do, however, during his time, was to create a sense of fleshing out what Starmerism was for, what Keir Starmer was about. And actually, all you ended up with is this sense that Starmer was effectively the vehicle for Morgan McSweeney to purge the party, to get the party back into power. And past that, they hadn't really thought out what it is that a Starmer project would look like. And I think if you look back at the start of the year, I think most sensible political commentators thought there was a fair chance that, you know, an unhappy party, sure, but that Starmer might have actually rumbled through till the end of the year. I think in the wake of what we've seen over the last week or so, and particularly with Morgan McSweeney's departure, it seems much more likely that, you know, after the May elections, that there will be, if there is an opportunity to, that they will gun for him in some way. We don't know how yet. It's very difficult to do, and all the potential contenders are damaged in some way. But at the moment, the only thing propping him up is the cabinet.
Yeah, very interesting. So the point you're making is effectively that Morgan McSweeney chose Keir Starmer, in effect, to defeat Corbynism. So let's look in more detail, shall we? Because our correspondent, Rob Powell, has looked back at Morgan McSweeney's political career and indeed his significance within the Labour Party.
As jubilant Labour supporters cheered Sir Keir Starmer into number 10, there in the crowd, the man critical to his victory, Morgan McSweeney. The Downing Street Chief of Staff may not be a familiar face, but his departure leaves the Prime Minister at a crossroads.
The important thing to understand is Keir Starmer has never thought seriously about running for the leadership of the Labour Party, about leading the Labour Party, or about being Prime Minister without Morgan McSweeney being at his side. Keir Starmer took his directions from Morgan McSweeney. He deferred to Morgan McSweeney on all questions of political strategy, and that's how he became Prime Minister.
That key aide now gone because of his relationship with this man, Peter Mandelson, someone described as a mentor to McSweeney from his early days as a Labour staffer. The advisor is said to have been central in pushing for the controversial ex-minister's appointment as US ambassador, something he's now paid for with his job. But who is Morgan McSweeney? Born in County Cork, he moved to London aged 17, joining Labour as a junior staffer after Tony Blair's 1997 victory. It shaped his view that Labour could only win from the centre. He cut his teeth in London politics, winning Lambeth Council for Labour and then seeing off a challenge from the BNP in Barking and Dagenham in East London. After Labour's defeat in 2015, he ran the failed campaign of Liz Kendall to be party leader, but it was Jeremy Corbyn who triumphed and veered the party to the left. Those years McSweeney spent working on who the party would accept as the next leader. And armed with a list of left-wing pledges, it was to be Sir Keir Starmer.
Starmer was perfect. They then put these 10 pledges to the membership in his leadership campaign, and almost which were effectively the economic and social policies of Corbynism. They're very good at factional infighting and winning power, The trouble is they're not skilled or interested in knowing how to run a country and for what purpose, and we're finding that out now.
15,529.
This was a big moment. Labour's disastrous defeat and Boris Johnson's triumph at the Hartlepool by-election in 2021. Starmer considered resigning as leader, but instead he put McSweeney in charge of the general election campaign, and things started to change. As Labour soared in the polls, the message was disciplined, caution on the economy and security. Starmer won a stunning majority, gaining over 200 seats. Morgan McSweeney's wife, former actress Imogen Walker, became an MP in Scotland. But the Downing Street team was unhappy. Chief of Staff Sue Gray was ousted and McSweeney was given her job. On the inside for key moments abroad, but he was accused of misjudging the mood of Labour MPs at home. After stories the Health Secretary was preparing a leadership bid, Downing Street were forced to deny the briefings came from McSweeney.
I am not going to add to the toxic culture by contributing to the toxic culture and going after individuals. I don't think that is a constructive or positive thing to do. And one thing I would say for Morgan McSweeney is there wouldn't be a Labour government without him.
Is the Health Secretary a traitor or a faithful Prime Minister?
But this did add to accusations of an insular boys' club at number 10, something only added to by the Mandelson scandal. McSweeney's departure comes at a dangerous moment. Lagging in the polls with political opponents all around, Sir Keir Starmer has lost his right-hand man as he battles to stay in control of his party and agenda. Rob Powell, Sky News in Westminster.
So, yes, I mean, your point of view, Kirsty, we heard earlier, is that Morgan McSweeney was the person who created, chose and anointed Keir Starmer, and then you asked the question, what's left of him? Can we go in detail to his actual statement? Because there were some specific bits that I found very interesting. He says, I advised the Prime Minister to make that appointment when asked. So who asked him to analyse whether, you know, Peter Mandelson would be the appropriate UK ambassador to America? Who made that original suggestion? How did Mandelson jump to the top of the list? These are elements that we still need the information for. And if you look at the reaction from Labour MPs, they want more still, don't they?
They absolutely do. I mean, implicit in that statement is an admission of wrongdoing in appointing Peter Mandelson. And who appointed him? It wasn't Morgan McSweeney, it was the Prime Minister, because he has the power to do that.
Who asked him to analyse whether Mandelson would be the right person? When asked, I advised him to make the appointment. Well, who asked him?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much outstanding here, and we're going to get potentially a litany of really embarrassing documents that potentially show the extent to which was not publicly acknowledged, Peter Mandelson was very heavily involved in either advising or lobbying Morgan McSweeney and other senior members of the UK government behind the scenes, well beyond the remit of his role as ambassador to the US. And as you were talking about, Labour MPs, they still want answers as well. And I just really detected today that very few of them are satiated by this. On the one hand, you had the pro-Starmerite sort of lobby who were thinking Morgan shouldn't have gone in the first place. They sort of understood why, but they think that really the Prime Minister should have stood by them. And on the other side, you have people that think that the fundamental problem here is the Prime Minister. And I was just going to read you some quotes I got from them today. A minister said, no one has any faith or trust in the Prime Minister. Another MP said, I think Keir is finished. Only a full leadership reset will restore trust. And another one said, this won't help. Don't blame the advisers. The PM is now in a weaker position. So if all of this is to buy himself time with the key constituency, which is most important to him, which is Labour's roughly 400 MPs, it hasn't worked yet.
The other point that he made in his statement, Morgan McSweeney, was, secondly, while I did not oversee the due diligence and vetting process, I believe that process must now be fundamentally overhauled. This cannot simply be a gesture, but a safeguard for the future. So who did oversee the due diligence and vetting process? Is this the swipe that we heard about at the back end of last week towards the security services? And why didn't anybody show any curiosity before this appointment was made?
It is, of all the kind of things that have made that stick in a craw that I've heard over the last 2 or 3 days, this is one of them. You know, this was the first political appointment of a US ambassador from Britain in 50 years, almost 50 years. It being a political appointment, to some certain extent, once the Prime Minister has let it be known that this is the person that they want, then that is the person they want. So to some certain extent, all the kind of normal processes you would expect in terms of vetting don't happen. already by virtue of the fact that it is known that this is the Prime Minister's chosen desire. What should have happened and what normally happens, and one of the things that Emily Thornberry, the head of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, said, normally you would come before a panel of MPs, a sort of public panel, and there's been quite a few calls, hasn't there, for that to be reconstituted. Because there is, for a Director of Public Prosecutions, as he never used to cease from reminding us, and one of the greatest political masterminds of the modern era, Morgan McSweeney, they asked him 3 kind of bog-standard questions about his well-publicised friendship, not kind of casual relationship, friendship with one of the most notorious paedophiles in modern history. And we are to believe that they genuinely thought that the answers that they gave were, well, you know, he said he barely knew him and, gee, we bought that. This is nonsense. It's not credible. The reality is they wanted to put in a shark, because in reality, Trump's circle is a circle of sharks. They were worried about Trump coming in. They were worried about potential tariffs. And they thought, we need a man like Mandelson in there. It takes a shark to catch a shark. And if at any point the victims of Epstein were in anybody's kind of consideration, that was completely blown out of the water by the raw politics of wanting to put someone like Mandelson in that job. They won't say that now. What they say now is, you know, we must think about the women and the victims of Epstein first. Yeah. Well, they weren't then.
That did feel like a credible argument at the time, did it not? You've quoted some reaction. We've had reaction all day. Let's just listen to that reaction.
This is really about trying to protect Keir Starmer, prevent him from having to think about throwing in the towel by saying, look, why don't you just have the head of my chief advisor instead? I'd be dubious about how long that will hold.
In retrospect, what a terrible decision. And that's why Keir Starmer is utterly furious. And the people that are close to him are saying that they've never seen him so angry, because he feels betrayed and the rest of us feel very angry.
Starmer's premiership is a bit like metal fatigue in an aircraft wing. You know that unless it's fixed, the wing will drop off. You don't know exactly when, and you don't know what exact specific events will cause it. But I think Keir Starmer's premiership has metal fatigue, and if he can't sort it out, at some point something will happen.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got a view, haven't they? Can I just ask you one final question on this before we take a look at the papers at 12:30 and their verdict on this? Will he stay or will he go, and how long's he got? Aubrey?
Well, he's obviously done this because Morgan McSweeney was for months almost a sort of sacrificial lamb. And I think there was some suggestion that actually it would have been much better for the Prime Minister if he'd been able to keep him there, either until after the by-election at the end of the month, or depending on the outcome of it, or possibly the local and national elections in May. I think if Keir Starmer can make it through to, like, July, then he's sort of close enough to the next general election that it's pretty much too dangerous and difficult. It so much depends on what his agitators do. Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner yet to finalise her tax arrangements after being sacked from the Cabinet last month. Wes Streeting, some ministers are saying, tainted by association with his close relationship with Peter Mandelson. So as ever, Keir Starmer survives because his challengers aren't ready to go.
When I came into number 10 under Theresa May, she was given a week, I think, to survive. And 2 years later, we were all still there. It takes a hell of a swing to kill a king, is the reality. But having said that, I think that this week has been a seismic shift in his long-term viability as Prime Minister. You've had all the text messages. I've had all the text messages. I've had the word toast an awful lot in my text messages. And I think you're probably right, Aubrey. I think the reality is it feels like he might survive through to May, but if Labour gets the battering that it's expected to do in those local elections in Scotland and in Wales, then it feels very hard to see that some kind of form, even if it's a unity candidate and an interim Prime Minister, some sort of replacement isn't then necessary, because this just doesn't feel tenable anymore.
Well, as Sam Coates said, we watch for the markets, we watch for the Parliamentary Labour Party discussion tomorrow as well, and plenty more from Sam in politics at Sam and Anne's as well, first thing in the morning. So wait for that to drop. In the meantime, we've got the newspapers to digest, which we will at 12:30. For example, The Guardian, which focuses obviously on Keir Starmer, saying his allies are hoping the resignation will quell the anger over the Mandelson scandal. So a full look then at the front pages for you at 12:30. 10. In the meantime, from woes at Westminster for one Prime Minister to jubilation in Japan for another, Sana Takaichi's coalition has secured an historic election win, with the right-wing agenda promising tax cuts and military spending to counter any threat from China. Well, the country's first female premier, who was inspired by Margaret Thatcher, called the snap election just 3 months after taking power, pledging to work, work, work. And her tough but fun style has resonated with younger fans. Sky's Asia correspondent Helen Ann-Smith reports now from Tokyo, a warning there is, though, some flash photography coming up.
In the end, there could hardly have been a more decisive endorsement of Sanae Takaichi and everything she stands for. Japan's first female prime minister, as the polls predicted she would, has really absolutely swept this election. A landslide. She's headed for a supermajority in Japan's lower house, in its national diet, its parliament. That's the more powerful body. And crucially, with that supermajority that she's set to get alongside her coalition partners, means that she will have real ultimate power to see through her vision. It means that the lower house, the parliament, will have the power to override the upper house if it wants. It will have the power, crucially, to change the constitution. And really, that is the mandate, the majority that she sought when she called this election. Remember, only around 4 months ago, Sanae Takaichi was just elected leader of her party. She didn't face the electorate. She didn't have a mandate. She took office just because her unpopular predecessor stood down. And at that stage, her party was really floundering. It had suffered from scandals, a sluggish economy, and people were really losing faith, if you like. What a turnaround from then to now. And really, she is the character at the centre of this. She is such an unusual figure, really, within Japanese politics, that is often so male and really quite dry. She is a drum-playing, heavy metal fan. She's motorbike riding. She takes selfies and sings with foreign leaders, and that energy has really captured the imagination here in Japan. And she's hugely, hugely popular. She's got 2.6 million followers on X, and remarkably, young people really, really support her. Approval ratings amongst people ages 18 to 29 are in the 90%, and that is quite remarkable when you remember that she is also a highly, highly conservative figure, ultra-conservative. She is anti-gay marriage. She is pro-patriarchal setups in the home. Crucially, she is really pro sort of nationalist ideas in Japan. She is pro building back up Japanese military and spending more on it. And that is controversial here because this country is still theoretically a pacifist country. Remember what I said about that supermajority. That matters because she can change the constitution to really enact some of those visions. But this matters not just because of what it says about shifting attitudes in Japan, a move to the right, but also because of what it might mean for regional stability. Remember, China will be watching, and China will not like what it sees. Already, Takaichi and China are at loggerheads. Comments she made about the self-governing island of Taiwan, drawing a raft of retaliatory measures, really harsh economic retaliatory measures from China that have put a lot of pressure on Japan. She is not backing down in the face of that pressure, and that is a relationship that's really at its lowest ebb for over a decade, and potentially, now she has this mandate, now she has this majority, could theoretically get worse.
Helen Ann-Smith, well, that was decisive, wasn't it, you two? I can think of a few snap elections that haven't quite worked in this country, or ones that were bottled. If you think about Gordon Brown, he didn't go for it, did he? But Theresa May, that was a bit...
Yes, unfortunately, we did go for it. It didn't work out quite so well for us, did it? But this is about the power of personality for me, Keir Starmer, take note. Here is a woman who has bags of personality and a very clear political vision. Whether you like it or not, you certainly know what you're voting for. She is enormously popular. She took this bold decision. It's absolutely paid off, and apparently it's snowing really badly in Japan as well. So not only did they turn out in the snow to vote. And she has a clear platform. It's a very conservative one. What is most notable about this from Japan's point of view is she wants to revise the peace plan, the post-war peace plan, and increase spending because she's concerned about two things. One, domestically, the cost of living, sound familiar? And two, obviously, this rising threat of China. So this is something that's clearly resonated. And if you look at her Instagram feed and her X feed, she's enormously popular. She's got 1.2 million followers on Instagram. I think I've got about 2. And on Twitter, she's got something like 2 million. And she has a handbag, like a trademark handbag that she always... There's a year...
That's very Maggie.
Very Maggie.
Yes.
There's a year-long waiting list for this handbag because it's so popular with young people, not with, you know, mature types, young people.
Lessons to be learned. But, I mean, some really big issues to deal with just quickly, Aubrey, if you don't mind. This sluggish economy, which Japan has had for a very long time, what to do about China, how to deal with Trump's America, friendly or whatever. But, you know, this, I mean, Japan is a very interesting case. Tougher on immigration again, even though they've got a very low birth rate and very few immigrants. I mean, it's all very interesting, the positioning, isn't it?
Certainly. A really sort of ageing population where they're having to be confronted with how they try and create economic growth. And so we're reading that she is trying to make the case against foreigner fatigue, basically saying there's loads of people that are kind of coming into the country. Traditionally, very strict visa rules have been relaxed in the last few years to try and stimulate the economy, get more non-Japanese workers in. But obviously that is having an impact on how people view immigration there. And I think most interestingly, Donald Trump's appeared alongside her in the past. They've presented themselves as sort of very good friends. He sees this as a really important bulwark against China in the Asia-Pacific region. Keir Starmer obviously stopped off in Tokyo as well on his most recent trip, so he's trying to present himself as an ally as well. So I think, yeah, the Chinese authorities will be feeling a little bit more sort of frosty now that they know that this woman has come in who's got a big commitment to increase defence spending and take a more hawkish approach to China.
I can't remember if you were on the plane or not with...
Sadly not. No, I did the India trip in November, but not this one.
We can't have everything. Anyway, lots more still to come on the next part of The Wrap. We will take a full look at what is making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, get their verdict on how safe Keir Starmer is now.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
Well, time now to see what's making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. No guessing, I guess tonight. The Telegraph to start with, reporting that the resignation of Sir Keir Starmer's right-hand man over Lord Mandelson's appointment would be enough to save him, saying the Prime Minister has played his last card. The Metro also leads with the resignation of Morgan McSweeney, saying the PM's allies fear fresh challenges to the Labour leader. The Financial Times reporting on the mounting scrutiny of Sir Keir Starmer's judgment as McSweeney departs with a statement that the decision to appoint Peter Mandelson was wrong. The Mirror headline says, "Blame me," as the paper covers the top aide's resignation. Front page of The Guardian reports that the Prime Minister is fighting to reassert his control as his allies hope McSweeney's departure will keep potential challengers at bay. The Express continues on this story, questioning whether Starmer's days are numbered, as does the Daily Mail with the headline, "How long can Starmer cling on?" saying his premiership is in freefall. The Sun leads with claims that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor leaked trade envoy documents to Jeffrey Epstein. The Star's headline, "Madge's material goals," covering Madonna cheering on her twin girls who play in the Spurs Academy. So let's talk more then with our guests here, Aubrey Allegretti, Kirsty Buchanan. Welcome back to both of you. So, Kirsty, Daily Mail, the question we've been asking, how long can Starmer cling on? With quotes there from Kemi Badenoch, the PM never takes responsibility for terrible choices. This whole idea that advisers advise and politicians make the decisions.
Yes, and Keir Starmer already has a reputation for liking to lay the blame at other people's doors when things go wrong, and this hasn't helped in that regard at all. Announcing his resignation speech, Morgan McSweeney said, "In public life, responsibility must be owned when it matters most, not just when it is most convenient. In the circumstances, the only honourable course is to step aside." So it's not, much of a leap to say, well, OK, if that is the view that you have taken, then why is that not the view to be taken by the Prime Minister too? It's his decision, ultimately. His ruling. He knew exactly the same things that Morgan McSweeney knew when he pressed for his appointment, Mandelson's appointment. And I think it actually just highlights that, Starmer has his reputation for being a man of integrity and decency. And I think this really starkly shows that actually what he's saying is the honourable thing to do is to take responsibility and resign. And it reminds me, Brett, I don't know if it reminded you, in very different circumstances, but the chairman of the Conservative Party, Oliver Dowden, who was a good friend of Rishi Sunak's, to be fair, when he resigned after a by-election and said something similar, "We cannot carry on with business as usual. Somebody must take responsibility. And I have concluded in these circumstances it would not be right for me to remain in office." He resigned, and then shortly afterwards there was a great big slew of ministers resigning, which ultimately brought an end to Boris Johnson's career. And I think there's not deliberately for Morgan McSweeney, I hasten to add, I think that Morgan has genuinely thought that in doing this he might give his boss a little bit more time in office.
Well, the Times points out that he's looking forward. Starmer is to set out plans to tighten government sleaze rules this week as he attempts to get on the front foot in response to the scandal. These are expected to include new lobbying and transparency regulation, Aubrey, greater powers for the government's Ethics and Integrity Commission, and an overhaul of government vetting procedures. It's all a little bit horses bolted stuff, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the question is it too little, too late? But the Prime Minister's got to be armed with something when he goes into that meeting with Labour MPs tomorrow. It has become my sort of weekly duty to stand outside of that door and try and ascertain what's being said on the other side, both what the Prime Minister's private arguments are to backbenchers, but also how he's being challenged on what topics and what the sort of messages back to Number 10 are. So he's going to go in, as my paper reports, armed with these plans to effectively sort of clear out sleaze from government politics. But people will be asking, Well, this was really a judgment call. There wasn't a sort of process that wasn't followed incorrectly. We can talk about maybe the vetting not have been as good as it should have been, but we already know a lot of the stuff about Peter Mandelson and his relationship and friendship with Jeffrey Epstein was in the public domain. This was a political judgment. It was a moral and ethical judgment. And how can you talk about changing or tinkering with the rules without sort of asking yourself and being introspective about whether or not you made the right decision, whether, in fact, you are to blame for some of this?
Yes, the Mirror says blame me, which is the Morgan McSweeney, effectively saying I take responsibility. Your paper, Kirsty, the Daily Telegraph, says Starmer has played his last card as McSweeney leaves number 10. Your paper pointing out, too, that Sir Keir is benefiting from the lack of an obvious successor, which is, you know, he's in a little sweet spot at the moment, isn't he, given that Andy Burnham was excluded from the by-election in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, all the contenders at the moment are damaged in some ways. I think, you know, we've been talking about earlier on, you know, Angela Rayner is still to yet resolve her tax affairs. Burnham is still trapped being the King of the North, having been blocked from standing in the Gorton and Denton by-election by Keir Starmer and his allies. And Wes Streeting, I think there's a feeling right now that he might be too close to Morgan McSweeney, and that in its own right might be problematic.
And Mandelson, they've deleted.
And Mandelson.
It was said they've deleted photographs of them together.
And when you think that the Conservatives last week forced out the publication in this humble address of hundreds of thousands of exchanges, hundreds of thousands of them, it might be that this is not the worst week yet for Keir Starmer. There might be worse to come, and for other ministers. This is an absolute unexploded bomb at the heart of government at the moment. And if it hadn't been for Morgan McSweeney resigning today, which has obviously and rightly taken up all of the front pages, the other big thing for me today was the head of the FBU, Steve Wright, calling for Starmer to go. Now, that's an affiliated union. Another affiliated union, the TSSA, also called for him to go. I think there are very few ways that you can really put enough pressure on a Prime Minister to get him out. If the Cabinet look loath to do it at the moment because it's not the right time for his biggest rivals, then actually a kind of succession of unions saying, force him out, otherwise we'll withdraw our funding, might be one way of doing it.
And just one final thought, sort of in support of Keir Starmer, in terms of reflecting how everyone's talking about him. Everyone says he's a decent man, he's in it for the right reasons, and he's trying to do his best for the country. Do you think that alone will prop him up?
It's difficult because no one's forcing him to be Prime Minister. I mean, he could hold any number of really important roles in which he would be able to use his skills and experience for public good. And yet here is a man who sort of did stand to be Prime Minister of the country, who is handling it in a pretty difficult way. I mean, we've gone through 2 chiefs of staff now. We all sort of glazed over the fact that Sue Gray was sacked, you know, 4 months into the government. And again, when there's a sort of a pattern emerging, you know, to sort of make a mistake once is maybe forgivable, but multiple times it starts to look like you've got the error of judgment or it's your fault. And Kirsty made a really interesting comparison with Oliver Dowden, who was obviously one of the first big dominoes to fall in the last sort of dying months of Boris Johnson's administration. He then later got put in, of course, a senior role by Rishi Sunak, who he then supported in the leadership contest. So we should be asking every minister over the following week whether or not they fully support Keir Starmer, because there will be a genuine question about who goes over the top and when.
I mean, Keir Starmer is the most unpopular Prime Minister in history. An awful lot of Labour MPs, in private, if not in public, that's very little in public, have said the buck actually does stop with you, do the honourable thing. And increasingly we're seeing some of the unions beginning to break cover on this. The only thing keeping him up there at the moment is the Cabinet. So it doesn't seem to me beyond the realms of possibility that those Labour MPs start to turn around to the Cabinet and say, right, do your job by us. You can feel the frustration building up, that they want him gone, but the Cabinet won't move for their own political reasons.
Yeah, the U-turns have not helped if we're looking for patterns of behaviour.
Any U-turns.
Let's move on for now, shall we? Because there's plenty more to discuss later on about this. Kirsty, let's stay with your paper. In fact, MI5 warns of a Chinese threat to universities. The intelligence agency briefed UK vice-chancellors.
Yeah, this is a fascinating story off the back of Starmer's relatively recent visit to China, which he said was for pragmatic reasons, and obviously was accused by both Reform and the Conservatives of kowtowing to China and putting national security at risk. Now we see that MI5 has issued a warning to universities about an increased threat from China, briefing all vice-chancellors that there were mounting security concerns about hostile states. Barry Smith, the universities minister, said there was growing evidence that UK education had become a prime target for foreign states. Now, we've seen, obviously, the government has given permission for this mega embassy, the China mega embassy, to be built, despite security concerns there. There is clear evidence that China not only targets these kind of institutions, but other organisations and other hostile states too have been targeting universities. And it's all part of this growing sense of, along with the kind of cyber attacks that have markedly increased from hostile states, this sense of destabilising, deliberate destabilising of the kind of social fabric of our society. And one of the places that is easiest to foment that is in our universities.
OK, we've got a few more stories to pack in. Just quickly then, Aubrey, if you can, in The Guardian now. Shabana Mahmood, Home Secretary, whose parents, the paper points out, migrated to the UK from Pakistan, is pulling up the drawbridge on refugees, the paper says.
Yeah, certainly. So this is an interview that The Guardian's conducted with Alf Dubs, who was previously the MC for Battersea, and he served as a minister in Northern Ireland, I think, during the Good Friday Agreement negotiations. And he's obviously been a sort of significant campaigner for the rights of asylum seekers and refugees, himself having come to the UK from Czechoslovakia on a Kinder transport train. And he's been tabling a series of amendments to government legislation in the Lords. But he says that Shabana Mahmood and other politicians are pulling up the drawbridge over the issue of refugee children. He effectively says, some people believe you pull up the drawbridge once you get inside. Politics is a tough old business. Some may want to demonstrate that they're not going to do things just because of their background. I argue that the cause of human rights should not depend upon the actual background of the individual putting forward the argument. It should be on the merits of the argument. So he's effectively turning fire on his quite hardline, sort of conservative with a small c, Home Secretary, who's been brought in to try and get a grip of both legal and illegal migration. She announced these reforms that were going to be similar to the Danish migration changes, which were going to effectively make it harder to claim asylum in the UK. But it shows that there is still lots of opposition to those from many inside the Labour Party, including in the House of Lords, which obviously will have a vote on this legislation.
Looks like they jumped ahead to the Daily Star, which is Madonna at the football, would you believe? We were going to talk about student loans, but we'll save that for later. Yes, who's that goal, the Star asks us. Footy fan Madonna went to see her twin girls, Stella and, how do you pronounce the name? Esther, play for Spurs Academy and watch them win. Good for them. Amazing stuff. We'll talk more later. I know you've probably got a pithy line on it.
I was about to say it's probably the only time that anyone's watched Spurs win in quite some time.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, 5-0, very emphatic. It's nice to give the Spurs people something to say.
There, Aubrey, Kirsty, for now, thank you. We've got lots ahead, including more sport. How important could this goal be come May in the title race? Back in a moment.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky Security and Defence Editor. The reality of life under Russian fire. People don't want to leave, even though help is here to evacuate them. They say they want to sort out their belongings first. It's absolute chaos. Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety, as Russian drones will be trying to find this position.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I've been covering Russia's full-scale war since it began, witnessing the terror and the trauma.
When rockets fall, I try to hide my head under my toys.
Illustrating Ukraine's lost childhood, hopes and dreams framed by war. Conflict in the Middle East is another major focus.
An incredibly dangerous moment. We saw the missiles streaking across the sky. We saw the intercept going up, and then we saw the explosions when the intercepts were successful.
With global threats rising, I also explore defence and security in the UK and across NATO. This US aircraft carrier is operating in European waters in a deliberate show of force.
This is routine training for NATO, but should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
Tucked away in the National Archives are some of the UK's old defence plans. The scale of this bunker underlines how seriously governments took the threat of nuclear attack and global conflict. Should allies listen to Vladimir Putin's sabre-rattling?
No, they shouldn't, and they don't.
Sky News, the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Rich and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Well, it's time to catch up with the very latest sport. Here's Gavin in Sky Sports News.
Perfect, thank you very much.
A footballer's life is all about moving. I never had a problem with that because I was the one that was progressing in my football career.
The Crazy Gang's welcoming committee were making sure their new arrival enjoyed a warm welcome.
I'd had a small arthroscopy operation, and at that particular time there was a lot of clubs interested in me.
But in a last-minute twist, Wimbledon learned John Hartson would not be moving as Spurs.
John Hartson was last week tipped to be on his way across South London for £5 million. That seems a dead deal.
I don't want to do any more medicals, to be honest. I can't pass a medical because of this knee.
A downbeat John Hartson was rushed out of Ibrox today, having been given the worst possible news.
We did not believe he was at the correct fitness at that particular time to go straight into Champions League.
Very seldom you see a player in the building walking around at a club and the deal isn't done.
I'm starting to question myself. I'm starting to think, well, where do I go from here?
The best medical he ever failed. I knew about his injuries, but that didn't matter to me because I think John had played 20 consecutive games for Coventry.
I was going to an absolute giant in Celtic Football Club.
Another season, another club for John Hartson.
So I've proved that my knee's fine and my fitness is good.
This was my complete say. I think he wanted to prove his fitness, and I think he wanted to prove Rangers wrong.
And here's Hartson!
Celtic fans hold John in the highest regard.
Incredible 7-0.
Celtic Football Club, to me, is a very special place.
These are the two strikers that have grabbed George Graham's eye, and at quite a cost. John Hartson, the teenager, arrives at Highbury in return for a cheque to the tune of £2.5 million.
It's just brilliant for me, like, you know, it's just a dream come true really to come to a club as big as Arsenal.
A lot of my career I've moved around. When you get offered to go and sign for big clubs, a footballer's life is all about moving and, you know, resettling, but I never had a problem with that. I went to Luton at 16 on a YTS scheme, progressed, and there was quite a few clubs interested in me at that time.
It's just a new start for me, you know, I've just got to start fresh and just perhaps show people, you know, what I can do.
I had 2 great years at Arsenal. They bid £2.5 million, which was a British teenage transfer record at the time.
He was bought for a certain part of the team, a more physical side. By the way, how good was he in the air? We were good at set pieces, you know, and long throws, and that's what John was fantastic at. In out-and-out 9, that's exactly what John was.
Arsene, this way, please.
Arsene Wenger came in, and I remember Arsene Wenger was superb. And he asked me to stay. He said, look, John, he said there was a few clubs wanting me to sign me, and he said to me, look, we'd really like you to stay and be your next man in. I think Arsenal wanted to partner Wright and Bergkamp. They were arguably 2 of the best in the world at that time. So I know a few clubs had come in, and then Harry Redknapp had bid.
Gavin, thank you. Let's take a look at the weather now.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
I've just seen the word rain. I do apologise, it's back. So potentially disruptive rain into next weekend. It'll turn colder as well, with wintry hazards possible to end the week. There'll be a mild, mostly grey start tomorrow with extensive low cloud, mist and fog and outbreaks of rain or drizzle, prolonged over northeastern Scotland and the far southwest. Northern Ireland, the north of Ireland, northwestern Scotland and southeastern England look mainly dry though. The morning will stay rather murky and damp for most, with rain taking over many southwestern parts, but Scotland will see more general rain in the northeast clearing. Northwestern Scotland, Northern Ireland and the north of Ireland will be drier and brighter, while central and southeast England will brighten up. It'll be mild, but it will be windy in the south. Northern Ireland, the north of Ireland, Wales and central southern England will turn wet later, while the far southwest will slowly dry up.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, next up, we'll have more analysis from Aubrey and Kirsty on the departure of Morgan McSweeney, resigning today. What will the loss of his long-time advisor be to Sir Keir Starmer?
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report. And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Tonight on The Wrap, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, quits over his role appointing Peter Mandelson. But does it leave Sir Keir Starmer more exposed?
Morgan McSweeney was the backbone of the Starmer project, and his departure will leave a huge, huge void. But two cabinet ministers told me quite clearly that the Prime Minister simply had no options. Such was the scale of the crisis.
Also ahead, Japan's Iron Lady secures a stunning landslide victory as her snap election gamble pays off. The mystery surrounding the disappearance of the mother of a US TV host, as the family say they will pay for her safe return. Will sports or politics dominate the Super Bowl with more than 100 million people watching the action and Bad Bunny's halftime show? In the Premier League, Manchester City leave it late, but they beat Liverpool in dramatic fashion to keep the title race alive. Well, we discuss the day's biggest stories with the political commentator Kirsty Buchanan and Aubrey Allegretti from The Times. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, focusing, of course, on the Prime Minister's top aide resigning over the Mandelson scandal. Well, good evening to you. I take full responsibility, the words of the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, as he resigned and became the scapegoat for the appointment of Peter Mandelson, despite his links to Jeffrey Epstein. Let's bring in then Kirsty and Aubrey. What a day it's been. Will Morgan McSweeney's resignation, Aubrey, do you think, end the bloodletting?
I don't think so. I mean, this has obviously left Keir Starmer now without his sacrificial lamb. Come potentially difficult election results at the end of the month, and in May, there will be nobody else left to protect him.
Kirsty?
I think they wanted to hold on to Morgan McSweeney for as long as they could. I think ultimately the pressure became too much, both for him and for Keir Starmer. Without him, he is dangerously exposed, and it's only a matter of time, I think, before they come for him this year.
Well, tomorrow, Sir Keir Starmer will address members of the Parliamentary Labour Party as he tries to regain control. Let's get more then. Here's our political editor, Beth Rigby.
Prime Minister.
Morgan McSweeney is an essential part of my team. He helped me change the Labour Party and win an election. Of course I have confidence in him.
Keir Starmer, but days ago at Prime Minister's questions, standing by his right-hand man. But now the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff has gone from lieutenant to lightning rod. Morgan McSweeney forced to quit number 10 over the Mandelson crisis as the Prime Minister offered up his closest aide in an attempt to save himself. In a statement, Sir Keir Starmer said it had been an honour to work with Morgan McSweeney for many years as he thanked him for his commitment to the Labour Party and to our country. Our party and I owe him a debt of gratitude. Morgan McSweeney said the decision to appoint Peter Mandelson was wrong. I advised the Prime Minister to make that appointment, and I take full responsibility for that advice. The only honourable course is to step aside. It has been a swift and dramatic fall. For years, Morgan McSweeney was by Starmer's side, the strategist that got him elected Labour leader, the mastermind of the winning election campaign, and the backbone of Starmer's number 10. In a sign of the frantic decision-making, on Sunday morning, this Cabinet Minister was saying McSweeney shouldn't be the fall guy for Mandelson.
It's a Prime Ministerial appointment, and Prime Ministers have to take responsibility for the decisions that they make. Perhaps I say this as someone who was a former staffer, as they say, in number 10 myself. I don't know the advice that was given, but in the end, it's a Prime Ministerial appointment, and I think the stuff about Morgan McSweeney is sort of beside the point.
But many Labour figures disagreed, and his resignation was welcomed by some.
I think Morgan McSweeney has probably done the right thing by saying, look, I take responsibility for this. But I think the whole Labour Party, including the Prime Minister, including all of the Labour Party, is going to have to do a lot of soul searching and a lot of self-reflection on this culture that did lionise men like Peter Mandelson and did put him on a pedestal at all costs, even though everybody knew he was a flawed character and had got into trouble before.
I can tell you the team inside number 10 are reeling as the fallout of the Mandelson scandal rips through the very heart of the number 10 operation. Morgan McSweeney was the backbone of the Starmer project, and his departure will leave a huge void. But 2 cabinet ministers told me quite clearly that the Prime Minister simply had no options. Such was the scale of the crisis and the gravity of his situation. He had no choice. It was inevitable that McSweeney had to go. That it's got to this point, though, reflects how perilous the Prime Minister's position is. And this might buy him some time, but it's a sign of the crisis, not a solution to it. On Monday, the Prime Minister will appeal directly to his MPs as he tries to right what has gone so wrong in his number 10. But events of the weekend point to a government in freefall. Starmer staggers on, for now. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
Well, it's been a fascinating day. First of all, I mean, let's just start from the beginning. Was this inevitable, first of all, your view?
Well, number 10 had sort of spent about 3 or 4 days trying to pretend that it wasn't. I mean, we even had Pat McFadden out on the morning round saying that there would effectively be no point to sacking Morgan McSweeney. The damage had already been done. But I think it was a recognition of the fact that Labour MPs from across the party had come to openly call for Morgan McSweeney's head. And there was obviously a delaying strategy, as Kirsty was rightly saying before. I think they would have liked to have held on to him for a long time, not least because of obviously his experience, his sort of overall strategy, and having basically been the sort of person who was guiding Keir Starmer as a political figure, but also because he was at one point going to be the sacrificial lamb that could be thrown under the bus at the by-election later this month or at the elections in May later down the line. So I think overall probably was inevitable, but I can tell you now there is still quite a significant cadre of Labour MPs who don't agree with this decision, who think that it kowtows to what they describe as the hardline left in the Labour Party, who have been gunning for Morgan McSweeney for different reasons. And they think that ultimately this leaves the PM without his biggest supporter and advisor, which is only going to make him more vulnerable in the months to come.
Yes, I mean, there's multiple issues to that. One, you know, in the political chess moves, the bishop's gone, the protective force, the army's gone effectively, but also it leaves him isolated and it leaves him without the voice that's been... Well, I'll ask the question, is it the voice that's been telling him what to do in politics?
Yeah, I mean, it is impossible to overstate. There is no Starmer project without Sweeney. It was McSweeney that sat there 6 or 7 years ago and thought, right, it is my mission almost, and together with a set of allies, before they'd even approached Keir Starmer, had sat around in Lord Little's house, having dinners, working out how they were going to revive the party. Now, bear in mind that, you know, Corbyn, before the hard left got on their moral high horse about a lack of morality from the Blue Labour project, you know, under Corbyn, the party had become a kind of open cesspit of anti-Jewish hatred. In 2019, Labour had slunk to its worst election defeat, I think, since 1935. And all this boldened McSweeney to say, right, this needs to be purged. We cannot be electable again until we are back in the kind of understanding of the values of the working men and women of this country. And that's what he set out to do. And he looked for the right vehicle, the right leader, and he decided that that person was Keir Starmer. It was his creation. They then turned round and said to the soft left and the hard left, we will be a kind of continuity Corbyn. In essence, they came up with 10 pledges, all of which were pretty Corbynite. That's how he got elected, by basically lying to a large chunk of his own party about what he would do when he became leader. Their first reshuffle was one where you balanced the hard left and the soft left. But once they'd kind of gained power, that was all jettisoned out again. Control was established. And I think probably by about summer of last year, you saw the height of McSweeney's powers when he pushed people that were his people into key cabinet roles. But now all of that's beginning to crumble away, and the soft left and the faction that has been kind of grumbling for a very long time is now feeling that its chance is on the rise again. How you unite that, again, I do not know.
Let's see the sort of the straw poll of paper reaction to that. First of all, both of your papers, The Times, your paper, Aubrey. There we are, PM's top aide quits over support for Mandelson. The Telegraph, Kirsty, your paper, Starmer plays his last card. That's what we're talking about, the chess moves there, as McSweeney leaves number 10. And in terms of the left-leaning newspapers as well, we've got the Mirror and the Guardian. The Mirror, for example, blame me. Keir Starmer's top aide quits after taking full responsibility for the Mandelson debate. The pressure, though, they say, is still on the Prime Minister. And the Guardian, too, Starmer fights to regain control over his party after McSweeney's exit. So just quickly, how will he fight to regain control? There's talk about him, setting out how vetting needs to be improved, and also that we'll see him in front of the Parliamentary Labour Party tomorrow.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the PM's got to go into this key meeting with all Labour backbenchers armed with something. He's already done, obviously, a press conference at the tail end of this week, which appeared to be contrite and showed regret, but he needs to show that he's taking tangible actions. So that will, one, I think, show, a real sort of understanding that things have got to change, and two, there are going to be some tangible changes in terms of speeding up some of the vetting processes and giving people assurances that basically this won't happen again. But Cabinet Ministers are being quoted on the front page of my paper, The Times, by my colleagues that have written this story, effectively saying, we're asking the question of whether he will be there at the end of the week. There's a feeling he could stand down at any moment. I mean, that's incendiary. So even if Cabinet Ministers aren't sure that Keir Starmer could last at the end of the week, I think that gives us cause for concern. OK, fascinating. Well, you started to outlay why Morgan McSweeney was so critical. Let's hear more now from Rob Powell.
As jubilant Labour supporters cheered Sir Keir Starmer into number 10, there in the crowd, the man critical to his victory, Morgan McSweeney. The Downing Street Chief of Staff may not be a familiar face, but his departure leaves the Prime Minister at a crossroads.
The important thing to understand is Keir Starmer has never thought seriously about running for the leadership of the Labour Party, about leading the Labour Party, or about being Prime Minister without Morgan McSweeney being at his side. Keir Starmer took his directions from Morgan McSweeney. He deferred to Morgan McSweeney on all questions of political strategy, and that's how he became Prime Minister.
That key aide now gone because of his relationship with this man, Peter Mandelson, someone described as a mentor to McSweeney from his early days as a Labour staffer. The advisor is said to have been central in pushing for the controversial ex-minister's appointment as US ambassador, something he's now paid for with his job. But who is Morgan McSweeney? Born in County Cork, he moved to London aged 17, joining Labour as a junior staffer after Tony Blair's 1997 victory. It shaped his view that Labour could only win from the centre. He cut his teeth in London politics, winning Lambeth Council for Labour and then seeing off a challenge from the BNP in Barking and Dagenham in East London. After Labour's defeat in 2015, he ran the failed campaign of Liz Kendall to be party leader, but it was Jeremy Corbyn who triumphed and veered the party to the left. Those years McSweeney spent working on who the party would accept as the next leader. And armed with a list of left-wing pledges, it was to be Sir Keir Starmer.
Starmer was perfect. They then put these 10 pledges to the membership in his leadership campaign, and almost which were effectively the economic and social policies of Corbynism. They're very good at factional infighting and winning power. The trouble is they're not skilled or interested in knowing how to run a country and for what purpose, and we're finding that out now.
15,529.
This was a big moment. Labour's disastrous defeat and Boris Johnson's triumph at the Hartlepool by-election in 2021. Starmer considered resigning as leader, but instead he put McSweeney in charge of the general election campaign, and things started to change. As Labour soared in the polls, the message was disciplined, caution on the economy and security. Starmer won a stunning majority, gaining over 200 seats. Morgan McSweeney's wife, former actress Imogen Walker, became an MP in Scotland. But the Downing Street team was unhappy. Chief of Staff Sue Gray was ousted and McSweeney was given her job. On the inside for key moments abroad, but he was accused of misjudging the mood of Labour MPs at home. After stories the Health Secretary was preparing a leadership bid, Downing Street were forced to deny the briefings came from McSweeney.
I am not going to add to the toxic culture by contributing to the toxic culture and going after individuals. I don't think that is a constructive or positive thing to do. And one thing I would say for Morgan McSweeney is there wouldn't be a Labour government without him.
Is the Health Secretary a traitor or a faithful Prime Minister?
But this did add to accusations of an insular boys' club at number 10, something only added to by the Mandelson scandal. McSweeney's departure comes at a dangerous moment. Lagging in the polls with political opponents all around, Sir Keir Starmer has lost his right-hand man as he battles to stay in control of his party and agenda. Rob Powell, Sky News in Westminster.
So he's lost his right-hand man, his central figure, his creator, according to Kirsty and others. The Daily Mail, I suppose, picks the question, how long can Starmer cling on? Kirsty?
Well, his odds of clinging on have got much kind of shorter than they used to be. I think we'd moved from a position where most people at the start of the year thought he would probably stay until the end of the year. I don't think you'll find many people that would tell you that now.
Absolutely, and no less than Angela Rayner we have getting a full blow-dry. She's had this amazing haircut. It's all been posted on TikTok by this hairdresser. And, I mean, it reminded me, Robert Jenrick, Boris Johnson, when both of them wanted to run for the leadership, they were obviously sort of got their hair done and really wanted to seem a lot more prim and proper. I'm wondering, is it Keir Starmer next for the chop?
I think she's just trying to prove she's a cut above the rest.
Boom. Okay. Don't forget, full look at all of the newspapers for you at 11:30. In the meantime, should we go from the woes at Westminster for one Prime Minister to jubilation in Japan for another? Senai Takaichi's coalition has secured an historic election win with a right-wing agenda which promises tax cuts, military spending to counter any threat from China. The country's first female premier, who is inspired by Margaret Thatcher, no less, called the snap election just 3 months after taking power, pledging to work. And a tough but fun style has resonated with younger voters, younger fans even. Sky's Asia correspondent Helen Ann Smith reports now from Tokyo. Some flash photography coming up, just a warning.
However you cut it, this is a one-woman story. Her mandate, her landslide. This a remarkably understated marking of a remarkably oversized result. Senai Takaichi took a gamble in calling this snap election. It paid off, and she knows it. Nationwide, her party cheered her reversal of their fortunes, from struggling to supermajority in just a matter of months.
Would you say you're feeling excited? How are you feeling?
Oh, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm very, very excited.
I think Japan will get better and better.
She might have captured the nation's affections with drum playing, selfie taking, and an atypical energy for politics here. But hers is a vision with an ultra-conservative core. Surprisingly, perhaps, the young here are largely behind her. Students buoyed by her pursuit of a stronger, more assertive Japan. A stronger, better funded armed forces.
Yes, she used the catchphrase, strong and prosperous Japan. And until now, Japan's prime ministers hadn't taken such a clear stance on national defense. By using the word strong, I feel like it kind of broke through that sense of stagnation and cleared it away.
It's not important which is left or right. So we think just most important thing, just policy.
In the end, there could hardly have been a more decisive endorsement of Takaichi and everything she stands for. Her conservatism, her nationalism, her vision for a more confident and a more militarized Japan. And it matters not just because of what it says about changing sentiments here, a notable shift to the right, but it also matters because of what it might mean for regional stability. Be in no doubt, China is watching, and it doesn't like what it sees. Indeed, in China, Takaichi is already a villain and routinely depicted as such, provoking comments on the so-called Taiwan question,
Takaichi lets the ghost of Japanese militarism,
a source of unbridled rage,
trying to drag Japan toward eternal doom.
And in the corners of Japan more inclined to look outwards, there is a sense of unease. It is here we meet Mr. Kikuchi. His father was a kamikaze pilot in the Second World War. A story, he says, with a warning.
I never even saw his face. So if things turn out like that, in the end, it's the ordinary people who are left to bear the consequences. China and Russia are much larger countries. They're huge, and that means you have to be suitably cautious.
Her majority is so large as to be carte blanche for her to see through her plans. They are plans that will change this country. Helen Ann Smith, Sky News in Tokyo.
So, Kirsty, she took a gamble here, and it's absolutely paid off.
It really has. 3 months after she was elected, I mean, the party that she runs was in the absolute doldrums. She is a hugely popular, if slightly divisive, figure in Japan. She has a clear agenda of what she wants to do for Japan, tackling the cost of living, increasing spending on defence. And I think this has really resonated with people. It's a lesson, I think, for where we are in Britain. If you've got bags of personality and you want to set a clear agenda, it might not be for everyone, but it's certainly been for an awful lot of people the thing that's got them out when the snow is that high on the ground in Japan to vote for her and give her a thumping great majority.
Interesting. Some big issues to discuss for her, though. They've got this really sluggish economy, which they've had for absolutely ages. The big issue of China, Trump as well. You know, what does she offer the electorate that they've come out to vote in such droves?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty to keep her busy with. And obviously, there's been a lot of concern about Japan's both ageing demographic and population, its sort of sluggish economic growth, both of those things slightly sort of contributing to one another. And so there's been a lot of questions about how they're going to be able to rejuvenate the economy. She's been talking about foreigner fatigue. They've effectively had to bring in lots of workers of other nationalities. They've relaxed visa restrictions to enable non-Japanese people to start coming into the country and doing some sort of service roles that didn't used to be done that way before. And it's understandably, for some voters, started to kind of alienate them. There have been obviously big questions about immigration and cohesiveness in this country as well. So she'll be looking at that. But also this big question of China. Interestingly, she's obviously been very close to Donald Trump. I think he's hailed her before as a winner. We have seen in other countries how actually a closeness to Trump can almost be quite toxic with the electorate and has pushed right-wing Conservative parties, like the one she leads, further down in the opinion polls. That hasn't sort of happened here. So it will be curious to see just how she gets on with her incredibly significant majority.
Yeah, there's the, you know, personality-driven, drum-playing politics, handbag-wielding too. Can we hear it? No. A little bit.
Doesn't Keir Starmer play the flute or
Does
something
he?
like that? It would
Where
be
is he playing
fantastic
the
to have a
flute?
video of him.
Now's the time.
How very unsurprising. And much like Thatcher, she apparently survives on 3 hours sleep a night.
I know the feeling.
I can barely scrape through in about 6. So.
Yeah. Margaret Thatcher was a famous, what was it, 4 or 5 hours? 4?
4 and a whiskey.
4 and a whiskey. Well, there we are. That's what we do. Yes, well, we'll keep an eye on, you know, how she progresses and whether there are lessons learned for personality-driven politics here in this country. Now, plenty more still to come. The mystery surrounding the disappearance of the mother of one of America's best-known TV hosts. The family has spoken out once again. We'll come back with that.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Richard and Frost.
Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Well, you're watching The Wrap with Kirsty Buchanan and Aubrey Allegretti. Let's bring you more news that's dominating news in America now. It is a missing persons case which has gripped America, certainly. Nancy Guthrie, the mother of one of the country's best-known TV anchors, Savannah, has not been seen for more than a week, is believed to have been kidnapped. Well, her daughter has released a new video message solemnly telling those believed to be holding the 84-year-old captive that the family will pay for her safe return.
We received your message, and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
Was so difficult for the family. The former FBI agent, Dennis Franks, told us that the way Savannah Guthrie is talking directly to the kidnappers is interesting.
Some of the messages that Savannah is giving out and the family's giving out has certain wording that I think may have significance to the kidnappers, in that there could be some coding, some messages there. One of the first messages was that we hope to see her back for celebration. That was kind of an unusual term to use, in my opinion. Yes, they'll celebrate her coming back, but normally you'll use terminology such as, she's important to us, we value her, she's loving and caring, and we can't wait to see her.
I mean, so painful for the family, talking directly to potential kidnappers, suggesting they will pay. Does it feel like they begin to know who it is that's done this targeting, do you think?
Well, it sounds as though, a lot of the communication is being carried out electronically. Yeah. They're hiding their sort of IP address and their servers, but there's some sort of commonality to the method of communication that means that, the family knows that they are communicating at least with the kidnappers. I think at this stage, obviously, the radio station, which initially received the information about her being captured, that hasn't even been shared. So there's a lot that we don't know about this that the FBI is trying to keep to itself to avoid doing anything that could give away, or I think probably reveal how much they actually know, to avoid sort of tipping off the kidnappers that they're sort of on the cusp of being caught. So that is just going to leave things in a really difficult place for this family. I visited Tucson last year, I think, just over a year ago now, for the US election in Arizona. It's a very sort of tight-knit community, but a lot of sort of barren landscape out in the desert. So I'm sure people will be feeling really concerned for her welfare.
Absolutely. As nations, we always had the mantra, you don't pay kidnappers, you don't pay terrorists as well. This offer to pay, what does that do you think, in terms of vulnerability of other people who are
It's interesting.
famous?
I heard a law enforcement officer talking about it today, and he said, look, ultimately, we don't have control over what the family choose to do, which felt slightly like he was wanting to criticise them for engaging in an open and public discussion about paying for it. But there seems to be that this is quite a sophisticated and targeted abduction. They've clearly been watching her movements, she was taken in the middle of the night, about 2 o'clock in the morning. She'd gone to see one of her family members. She'd got an Uber home, gone to bed, and at 2 o'clock, or just before 2 o'clock in the morning, the doorbell camera was dismantled, and that's when they believe the abduction took place. So it's targeted. It appears to be a targeted, sophisticated abduction, presumably because of her links to this very famous. And it's completely gripped America. 24/7 coverage over this, and an awful lot of criticism of the FBI and of the police and their inability to be able to get a sense of and what we do or don't know. The sense is at the moment that they're struggling in terms of making any progress on this investigation.
We'll certainly keep an eye on that. Kirsty, Aubrey, for now, stay there if you can, because we will take a first look at what is making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Including the Telegraph, for example, as you can see, reporting that the resignation of Sir Keir Starmer's right-hand man over Lord Mandelson's appointment won't be enough to save him, saying the Prime Minister has played his last card. The Metro also leads with the resignation of Morgan McSweeney, saying the PM's allies fear fresh challenges to the Labour leader. The Financial Times reports on the mounting scrutiny of Sir Keir Starmer's judgment as McSweeney departs with a statement that the decision to appoint Peter Mandelson was wrong. The Mirror headline, "Blame Me," as the paper covers the top aide's resignation. The Times reports that Sir Keir Starmer has sacrificed his closest political ally to try to appease Labour MPs. On the front page of The Guardian, they report that the Prime Minister is fighting to reassert control as his allies hope McSweeney's departure will keep potential challengers at bay. To the Express now, it continues on the same story, questioning whether Starmer's days are numbered. As does the Daily Mail with the headline, "How long can Starmer cling on?" saying his premiership is in free fall. The Sun leads with claims that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor leaked trade envoy documents to Jeffrey Epstein. And the Star's headline, "Madge's material goals," covering Madonna cheering on her twin girls who play in the Spurs Academy. Well, we've talked a lot already, haven't we, about the politics of the day, Morgan McSweeney. So let's delve inside some of the newspapers, including into the Winter Olympics, which is inside the eye, with the news that the, famed and brilliant American skier Lindsey Vonn, who came back from, first of all, retirement, and secondly, a serious knee injury, had an absolutely devastating fall in the women's downhill today in Cortina.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, she clipped a gate just 13 seconds into the women's downhill in Cortina, and there's obviously been a huge sort of outpouring to try and, express sort of support and solidarity. Her sister saying that the incident was the last thing that her family wanted to see, that she said it was scary because when you start to see the stretchers being put out, it's not a good sign. So, yeah, really clearly some very difficult scenes for them to do. She'd undergone partial knee surgery in April 2024 after retiring from the sport, but she obviously made a comeback, and so there is a lot of concern for her health going forward. It's obviously just been the start of the tournament, and this is the last thing that a lot of athletes will want to see. They'll be feeling, quite perturbed and nervous about this, because they'll be realising that this is something that, could sort of affect any of them. I was reading the other day that rugby players aren't allowed to go skiing whilst they're sort of on international tour, because there is such a high risk of injury that could lead them to, become injured and then not be able to do their sport properly. So we've seen some amazing, fantastic, incredible sports so far, but it's obviously very difficult for this woman's family.
Yes, well, certainly Chemi Olcott, the great British downhiller, now reporting for the BBC, Ski Sunday as well, in tears. She knew Vonn, or she knows Vonn really well. She was worried about her family. But, why was she allowed to race, I suppose, was the question, when she had a serious knee injury in a very difficult downhill. Very difficult for her, and we wish her very well. She's clearly had surgery tonight after what appears to be a break in her left leg. So certainly, you know, sending our best regards to Lindsay Vonn. Should we go onto the front page of the Times, which is that millions would be better off, Kirsty, if they had been given a proper financial education. And this is a sort of a Times campaign for everyone to get lessons on investing.
Well, I know I would have been better off if I had proper... rather than spending my time trying to get my head round quadratic equations, and what was the point of trying to get my head round quadratic equations? And I still can't really get to grips with things like APR. And it's interesting the Times have done this. They've started a campaign about the cost of student loans. Yeah. There's an awful lot of focus within the paper on families and supporting families and trying to get a kind of almost like a youth strategy going here. And this is around giving people practical lessons on money and how to budget and what APR means, etc., etc. And it comes after 9 in 10 respondents surveyed by YouGov said they were taught nothing or very little about money. Of these, 6 in 10 believe they would be better off now if they had benefited from such classes. And this campaign has the backing of not just Rachel Reeves, the current Chancellor, but also Jeremy Hunt and Rishi Sunak too. And like I say, it's got my wholehearted backing, because I seriously think that I've just gone to buy a car and had to talk about financing of the car, and it just made my head hurt.
It blew your mind, did it? To the inside pages of the Mirror, in fact, their comment section, which is about a silent scandal of a drug given to pregnant women despite its later links to cancer and inherited harm. So it's another one of those cases of being concerned about what women took during pregnancy.
Certainly, I'm going to try and pronounce this, and I might butcher the name of the drug.
Generously.
Thank you. Diethylstilbestrol. And they say it's a drug that's been given to pregnant women despite its later links to cancer and inherited harm that's left some women, indeed thousands of women apparently, infertile, suffering repeated surgeries and the constant fear of cancer. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, is apparently meeting with campaigners tomorrow, but there are some calls from victims and survivors for a statutory public inquiry, proper NHS screening, and they say justice long denied. They want to obviously understand how this drug was being offered in the first place. We know that maternity and pregnancy services in this country are incredibly patchy. There's a postcode lottery. Lots of women still complain about complications when they're going through the birthing process. So this will be, I'm sure, a key meeting for the Health Secretary next week. He's got a lot on his plate.
OK, lots more still to come in the next part of our programme. Stay tuned. We'll be taking a look at more of the top stories in tomorrow's papers in just a moment.
best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Well, we're coming back to the newspapers, but we forgot to mention it's the Super Bowl. Tonight, more than 100 million people around the world will be tuning in to see the Seattle Seahawks take on the New England Patriots in the 60th Super Bowl. Well, although the sport itself is, as you would know, intrinsically American to the core, the entire spectacle has a much broader appeal, with the halftime show a big draw. 30-second advertising slots selling for as much as $8 million. Well, this year, perhaps controversially to some, the Puerto Rican rapper Bad Bunny, an outspoken critic of President Trump, is performing and could make a political statement about immigration. Shall we hear more? Sky Sports reporter Olivia Harlan-Decker is there. Oh, we don't have it yet. Oh, well, she'll be there soon. Anyway, we've got a live shot, I think, have we? This is a watch party in Boston, some distance away. I don't know what they're watching yet, to be fair. But anyway, Bad Bunny is an interesting choice, is it not?
Yes, he certainly is. I mean, he's relatively sort of famous and well-known, maybe not to all of us, but he did win a Grammy, and he follows in a sort of long line of people who've done the Super Bowl halftime show, the headliners including previously Paul McCartney, Sir Paul McCartney, sorry, Beyonce, Rihanna, Coldplay, so plenty of Brits. But often these are quite sort of tinged with politics. We've had the incident of Beyonce in 2016, her references to the Black Panther Party, J-Lo and Shakira in 2020. Their performance depicted children in cages at one point, which was said to be some comment on Donald Trump's controversial immigration policies during the 2020. And so, yeah, it's quite possible that given the significant sort of unrest in the US at the moment, another political statement will be made. I noticed that some athletes for Team USA out in the Winter Olympics have been, in the last 24 hours, making clear their discontent with some of the political issues going on back home, particularly drawing attention to the protests against ICE, the Immigration Enforcement Agency. So I imagine this is a moment which 100 million people are going to be watching. It's really sort of closely watched. So if you want to make a political statement, this is one hell of a sort of space to do that.
Yes, and if the Patriots win, they'll become the first team with 7 Super Bowl wins. So everyone's looking for the stats, obviously, aren't they? Will you be staying up?
No, I won't. I'm going to be honest. I didn't know who Bad Bunny was. I was more interested last year when it was Kendrick Lamar doing that fantastic diss of Drake, which was seen by 133 million people. Imagine being embarrassed in front of that.
That's how many people are watching tonight, isn't it?
That kind of thing. but the interesting thing...
Just a warm-up for it all.
The interesting thing with Bad Bunny is that obviously this has completely enraged President Trump that this is happening. And, you know, the NFL has got its own problems at the moment financially, and some of them are embroiled in the Epstein scandal as well. I'm not entirely sure right now would be the time that I'd want to pick to enrage Donald Trump. But if he is critical of him, most of us won't know because he's supposed to be doing the entire set in Spanish or on Espanol.
Oh, yes, indeed. So, yeah, I don't know where we're looking at pictures of Boston, to be fair, because it's all taking place in Santa Clara, California. But anyway, never mind. It made me hungry. I was staring intently at the woman eating her
very large nachos, I think she was eating.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
It's probably a small portion in America.
Kirsty, you dwelt on our next paper subliminally a moment ago, which is about student loans. And this is on the front page of the Financial Times. So, you know, they're starting to look at it in more detail, aren't they?
Yeah, it's just curious. On top of the huge political scandal that has dominated all the front pages for day after day, rightly so, there's been this story bubbling underneath about student loans and the cost of student loans. And the reason is there are 2 types of student loan, and Plan 2 student loans are anybody that graduated post-2018, 2012, sorry, so went in from 2012.
Yeah, they went into uni from 2012.
And the issue with this is that these loans were sold on to other companies to service the debt. They are charged back. Once you hit a certain threshold of earning, you have to repay your student debt. It's charged at RPI plus 3. In essence, that's an awful lot of money. Most of what the government calculates is done on CPI, which is a lower rate of interest. And so this is becoming a real problem. And it's a real problem, ironically, for Labour, because this is a matter of social, injustice. If I am wealthy, or I have wealthy parents, and I come out with a student debt of 27,000, my parents can pay it off and I'm free and clear. If I can't afford to pay it off, once I earn over a certain threshold, and I think it's now just 500 above kind of living wage, so it's a relatively low amount of money that you're taking home anyway, this huge kind of RPI plus 3 starts to be imposed on it. And over the lifetime of paying this back, you can pay back on that original 27,000, £80,000 worth of money. It's a huge burden to hang over people. And there was a point at one point where if you got a degree, you were going to go into work and have what you used to call a kind of, graduate premium, get paid more. That doesn't really exist anymore. And so all around, saddling people with this huge debt is becoming an issue for Labour. And I suspect the Green Party at some point, because they're quite happy to make promises that they can't fulfil, will say, we're going to get rid of this.
Interesting. We've got 1 minute left, or just under. You can choose Noel Gallagher or Llama Drama.
Let's go with Noel Gallagher. People love to hate him, and he loves to hate people.
Oh, Llama Drama's gone. Anyway, that's gone. It's gone.
This is a really interesting row. So he's going to be celebrated at the Brits Award, which is moving for the first time from London at the O2 to Manchester at the Co-op Arena, and he's going to be given what is it now? The title of Songwriter of the Year category. So this is despite the fact that he hasn't released any new music in the last 12 months. Now, he's obviously played an extortionate amount of shows. I went to go see Oasis. I've still got my Glastonbury wristband on, actually. But he is not released any new music, and this has caused a stir amongst some figures in the music community. There are people quoted in The Times, including somebody who's a songwriter who's collaborated with stars like Charlie XCX, saying the community's fuming. She says, by giving the award to Noel, the Brits are denying another songwriter who has had an excellent year releasing new material their opportunity to be recognised. Others who've worked with Stormzy, equally critical of the decision, so quite interesting.
Interesting. On that note, I mean, we started with politics. We moved all the way through to not quite getting to the llama, but never mind. Really lovely to have you both on with all your thoughts. Been a big, heavy political day, certainly. Aubrey Allegretti, Kirsty Buchanan, thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, we've got sport next. You need to look away. It's not your team. Erling Haaland scores a huge goal for Manchester City as they beat Liverpool in dramatic fashion to remain in the title race. That and plenty more sport ahead.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky Security and Defence Editor. The reality of life under Russian fire. People don't want to leave, even though help is here to evacuate them. They say they want to sort out their belongings first. It's absolute chaos. Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety, as Russian drones will be trying to find this position.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I've been covering Russia's full-scale war since it began, witnessing the terror and the trauma.
When rockets fall, I try to hide my head under my toys.
Illustrating Ukraine's lost childhood, hopes and dreams framed by war. Conflict in the Middle East is another major focus.
An incredibly dangerous moment. We saw the missiles streaking across the sky. We saw the intercept going up, and then we saw the explosions when the intercepts were successful.
With global threats rising, I also explored defence and security in the UK and across NATO. This US aircraft carrier is operating in European waters in a deliberate show of force. This is routine training for NATO, but should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real. Tucked away in the National Archives are some of the UK's old defence plans. The scale of this bunker underlines how seriously governments took the threat
of nuclear attack and global conflict. Should allies listen to Vladimir Putin's sabre-rattling?
No, they shouldn't, and they don't.
Sky News, the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Well, it's time for all the sport. Let's get the latest. Here's Gavin.
Perfect, thank you very much.
A footballer's life is all about moving. I never had a problem with that because I was the one that was progressing in my football career.
The Crazy Gang's welcoming committee were making sure their new arrival enjoyed a warm welcome.
I'd had a small arthroscopy operation, and at that particular time there was a lot of clubs interested in me.
But in a last-minute twist, Wimbledon learned John Hartson would not be moving as Spurs.
John Hartson was last week tipped to be on his way across South London for £5 million. That seems a dead deal.
I don't want to do any more medicals, to be honest.
I can't pass a medical because of this knee.
A downbeat John Hartson was rushed out of Ibrox today, having been given the worst possible news.
We did not believe he was at the correct fitness at that particular time to go straight into Champions League.
Very seldom you see a player in the building walking around at a club and the deal isn't done.
I'm starting to question myself. I'm starting to think, well, where do I go from here?
The best medical he ever failed. I knew about his injuries, but that didn't matter to me because I think John had played 20 consecutive games for Coventry.
I was going to an absolute giant in Celtic Football Club.
Another season, another club for John Hartson.
So I've proved that my knee's fine and my fitness is good.
This was my complete say. I think he wanted to prove his fitness, and I think he wanted to prove Rangers wrong.
And here's Hartson!
Celtic fans hold John in the highest regard.
Incredible serenity.
Celtic Football Club, to me, is a very special place.
These are the two strikers that have grabbed George Graham's eye, and at quite a cost. John Hartson, the teenager, arrives at Highbury in return for a cheque to the tune of £2.5 million.
It's just brilliant for me, like, you know, it's just a dream come true, really, to come to a club as big as Arsenal.
A lot of my career I've moved around. When you get offered to go and sign for big clubs, a footballer's life is all about moving and, you know, resettling, but I never had a problem with that. I went to Luton at 16 on a YTS scheme, progressed, and there was quite a few clubs interested in me at that time.
It's just a new start for me, you know, I've just got to start fresh and just perhaps show people, you know, what I can do.
I had 2 great years at Arsenal. They bid £2.5 million, which was a British teenage transfer record at the time.
He was bought for a certain part of the team, a more physical side. By the way, how good was he in the air? We were good at set pieces, you know, and long throws, and that's what John was fantastic at.
Gavin, thank you. Let's take a look now at the weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
So there will be further potentially disruptive rain into next weekend, and it will turn colder with wintry hazards, possibly to end the week. But a mild, mostly grey start tomorrow with extensive low cloud, mist and fog, outbreaks of rain or drizzle prolonged over northeastern Scotland and the far southwest again, would you believe? Northern Ireland, the north of Ireland, northwestern Scotland and southeastern England look mainly dry.